Hey there guys, PC Guy here on a review on the Gigabyte M27Q, a screen that hits all the right price points in terms of performance versus value and is a very good choice if you're looking to get into the high refresh rate 44dp experience without actually breaking the bank for it. We're going to be doing a quick overview of the unboxing of the screen itself, the included accessories, cables, etc., and how easy it is to assemble or not, as well as some quick information about my first-hand experience with it, how it came out of the box, how satisfied I was or not with it. You'll have to watch the rest of the video to find out, obviously. And just a few other comparisons to other screens that I was considering to replace as my daily driver, as well as the specs for the screen. For starters, it came in a very sturdy, very well protected box with a foam around, all that sort of stuff, pretty standard to keep the screen safe. It came with the stand not assembled, so the stand was, the actual vertical part of the stand was assembled, but I had to just put the base on it, which is very easy to do with a thumb screw application. Very easy to set up, no complaints at all there. As far as included accessories, it came with a number of things. It came with DisplayPort cable 1.4, HDMI cable as well, and a USB-C cable, which I am actually not really using right now, as well as obviously the power adapter for the screen itself, which, well, can't really quite run without it now, can you? After putting the stand together, the base on the stand that is, I proceeded immediately to test how handy the screen is in terms of what options do you actually have with the included monitor stand. So it goes up and down quite a bit. It can go all the way down to the desk level, as well as up to around 18 centimeters the bottom of the screen from your desk, which is a pretty sizable distance and should be enough if you want to elevate it a little bit, but don't actually want to get a stand. The stand cannot rotate to partner mode in any way, unless, of course, again, you have a monitor arm, and it also cannot swivel from side to side. It's a nice sturdy stand, it looks good, well, reasonably good, let's say, and yeah, I would, if you want more versatility on it, I would definitely recommend getting yourself a monitor arm for it. The mount itself is relatively sturdy. I will be getting the desk mount for both of my screens so I can have a bit more flexibility, but in any case, you can pretty much rely. This is definitely going to be enough height, even if you like your screen a bit higher up, you're not going to need to put anything under it. As far as it can go down like this, just a slight angle, and you can tilt it up quite a bit all the way like this. I do recommend holding the stand when you're doing this, otherwise you're going to tilt the screen backwards. As for other outside features that you can find at the back of your screen, it has, as we are used to these days, kind of a nipple controller for accessing the display settings, which is the best option really. I do have a minor gripe with it, that it's a bit more to the side than actual at the bottom of the screen, so you have to go through it from the side of the screen and not from the bottom, but that's just a personal thing and you get used to it. Other than that, it has all the necessary ports that you might want. It has a headphone jack, although I don't quite know who even plugs their headset to the display to begin with, but it has one if you actually happen to have it. It has inbuilt speakers that I have actually yet to test. DisplayPort, HDMI, the USB that I mentioned, and it has something that can be extremely useful if you use multiple devices. It has a KVM switch. What this means is that you can have the screen plugged into multiple displays, for example, one on the HDMI, one on the DisplayPort, and by hitting the KVM switch on the options, you will be able to use the same keyboard and mouse on both accessories if you have your keyboard and mouse plugged into the display as opposed to the computer itself. So you do have that option. It does mean that you are going to be using the USB ports on the screen to plug in your stuff, which I don't think many people use. But if you're on that specific use case that you have, for example, a laptop or something like that, that you want to use your big main screen on, then it's definitely handy and it's a nice plus to have and something that you don't see in many screens, especially not at this price point. So let's talk about the specifications here real quick. 170 Hz with FreeSync, it's pretty good, especially for the price point that this monitor sells at. Obviously, it will depend on the region. It can go up and down over time as well. But at the price that I got it, which I will discuss in a second when I am comparing it to other screens, pretty good. The color experience was very good out of the box. I don't actually have a way to calibrate it because those things cost quite a bunch of money, and just for my own personal screen I don't see the need. But importing an ICC profile from one of the many renowned websites that do this type of thing and applying it to the screen, I didn't really see much of difference from the factory calibration. So I am going on a limb here and saying that the factory calibration was actually pretty spot on and didn't really improve or get worse much by applying the ICC profile in question. So this obviously differs screen per screen, like each individual panel has its own calibration of the factory. None of them are alike. If you want a true calibration, you have to do it with an actual device. But as a feel experience, the color are pretty spot on. I should say that I came from a TN panel 60 Hz, so I'm going to sound very happy with this screen, which I am, but also keep in mind that I'm comparing it to something worlds apart, let's say. Like I mentioned, I was going to talk about a response time of 0.5 ms. Now, that is not truly the case. It comes with several overdrive settings, and the way it works is the overdrive kind of makes it actually be able to reach those refresh rates with some degree of accuracy, and not just, being too slow of a response time to actually refresh at that rate. Now, to achieve 0.5 ms, you are going to have to crank up all the overdrive all the way to the max, and that is going to give you a pretty bad experience in most cases, not this disc screen, but in general. It's going to give you a lot of overshoot, weird artifacts on your screen, that sort of thing. I recommend keeping it on picture quality mode, which is actually what comes enabled by default, and that is going to give you a very satisfying experience across all the possible refresh ranges. Good, decent response times, but it's not going to be the 0.5. There is no screen on the market, not at the consumer level at the very least, that is going to give you 0.5 ms response time with good performance and no weirdness happening in the background and weird effects like overshoot and all that sort of things. So, but that's not it's a critique to marketing in general, not to this screen in particular, because every company says the same, even the ones that all advertise 1ms, etc. That's just with all the settings cranked to the max, which is not going to be a pleasant experience. All of my praise for the screen aside, there is a very big elephant in the room here when talking about this screen, and that is the subpixel layout. Most screens use an RGB pixel layout, which is that the little diodes, the little LEDs basically, that are giving you the light on your screen, they are arranged in a certain order, and that is red, green, blue. In this case, it uses a different layout, which is blue, green, red, and while that might seem like a small difference, it does have quite a lot of influence on some things in particular, especially on fine letters of text. Like Windows ClearType has some settings that can alleviate this, but not every application is going to respect those settings. So there's that. Now, here's the thing. I have seen a lot of criticism about people saying that they can barely read the text on their screen because of the difference, and that it is so much of a difference, such an enormous difference, that they had to return the screen. I have not adjusted ClearType settings on my Windows at all, and I have no problem actually reading anything, and I don't notice much of a difference. So it might depend on your own personal experience. Something you are going to have to set up right out of the box is the brightness. It's going to come out just blaring at like 90 brightness settings by default. I lowered it out to a very comfortable like 50 or so, and even then I still sometimes think that it might be a little bit too bright. The OSD is very simple. You click it to access it, and you also have some other options in case you don't click it and just move it. If you go to the left, you get volume for the speakers on your monitor, which I don't think many people will use at all. If you go up, you get black equalizer settings, which I don't really like. It just washes out your black levels a little bit, which are already kind of bad. You have the input if you go to the right. And if you go down, you have the selection of, well, color settings for the mode that you are on. When you actually click it, you have KVM to the left, Game Assist to the right, power on and off if you go down, and then settings up above. Navigating to the settings, you have kind of a status of your screen. I'm trying to kind of capture it as best as I can, but it's difficult while holding the camera. You have a number of profiles, and within each profile, you can then, so under gaming, you have black equalizer, display mode, etc. Turning on, come on, turning on FreeSync or off. Under picture, you have a number of presets, and under each of the presets, you can further adjust your settings. So you can have a number of settings, different profiles with different settings ready for whatever use you actually want. And you have a whole bunch of the usual stuff like system settings, language, firmware updates and version, all that stuff. And well, basically all the goodies that you want to keep track of your screen's information. Holding the camera in my hand right now because I'm just going to point it at the screen in a moment, but I would like to point out that the screen arrived with no dead pixels at all, and backlight bleed does not seem to be an issue, so good experience all around. There was one pixel that I thought might be dead, and I was already, I'm gonna have to return it. But at the end of the day, I just touched the pixel on the screen, just, did a little rubby on it, and it worked fine, and I have not noticed it having any issues other than that. It's been working fine ever since, so I guess I can consider it arrived with no dead pixels at all. Trying to minimize the amount of backlight in the room is difficult, but to kind of give you an idea of IPS glow, but this is the best I get. It looks worse on the recording than it does on the, in practice. There are two kind of hotspots, one on the bottom left, which is kind of known with a lot of IPS screens, that it's a spot that there is a lot of IPS glow there. A tiny little bit on the bottom right that is not very noticeable. The top looks actually pretty okay. There's nothing on the top or at the sides, so it's mostly really the bottom left. As said, IPS glow is something you can never really eliminate. It's always going to be there if you are in a dark environment. When the room is well lit, I have literally zero complaints about that, and I'm the kind of person that kind of watches movies in the dark relatively often, or in low light at least, and I can't say it has bothered me massively there, although I can imagine if you are someone that pays very close attention to details, it probably will. Which to that I will say, you are not going to be escaping this problem with any IPS display, so consider other type of technology that suffers a lot less from this problem. So just a quick side note, because I kind of completely forgot, being carried away with all the mentioning the specs and all those numbers that are always nice to know when they do have a meaning, but doesn't really explain how it feels to like game on the screen. On just the feel level, everything feels a lot smoother than it used to. Then again, I'm coming from a 60 Hz TN panel, so yeah, and going to a variable refresh rate monitor like that, even though my poor 1660 Ti is struggling to actually get high frame rates in most games, it's still, even when playing at 60 FPS, it still feels a lot smoother and a lot such a better experience really in terms of fluidity of the images. It feels a lot better on the screen with the variable refresh rate than it used to. So even if your screen isn't putting out the whole 144 FPS that or 170 in this case that the screen is capable of, it's still a massive upgrade in visual quality, and in the experience that you get, definitely extremely satisfied with that. So on just, and that's what it all boils down to how satisfied are you with the experience you're getting with the screen, and I am extremely satisfied with that. So the Gigabyte M27Q, as far as price goes, it is on Amazon right now for $339. On sale actually from its usual price of $370, but I kind of expect it's available for the $340 quite frequently really. And here in Europe I paid about $329 I believe for it, euros, so kind of comparable I guess, can't complain about that. For that price you really can't get much a whole lot better than that. You do have to pay the price of it having that different subpixel array, the BGR story that I mentioned earlier, but To me, that has not really been a problem at all, so I am happy to go with that for having this kind of response rate, refresh times, and resolution with an IPS panel, which has very good colors. So definitely satisfied with the purchase. For the alternatives that you might want to check specifically two models that I also was keeping an eye on. The Viewsonic VX2758 2KP MHD is a very similar monitor in a lot of the specs. It also is a 1440p 144Hz IPS gaming monitor, also has FreeSync compatibility and GC compatibility, and hits a lot of the same points. It does not have a KVM switch, for example, so it does have a few things less, I suppose, but it is also quite a bit cheaper at $280. The colors are slightly worse out of the box, and there have been reports of well, quite a bit of a backlight bleed, which is something that you cannot easily fix. The good news is that if your screen has backlight bleed, that is usually considered a defect, and you can send it back for return an RMA or just a refund or a new product to be sent to you. Now, it can also happen that you get a new one sent to you and it has the same problem as well again. So yeah, there's that. Another option that I was also keeping an eye on was the LG Ultragear 27GL850, which again, 27-inch 1440p, very good response times, and don't be fooled by the G-Sync logo down there. It's not G-Sync approved, it's just G-Sync compatible, which at the end of the day, the other two screens I have mentioned so far also are. This one does have pretty good response times as well, better than the ones on the M27Q. It's also more expensive, quite a bit more expensive as well. So that is definitely something to keep in mind if you're going for it. If the increase in price is actually worth the slight increase, the slight improvement on the response times or not, because they are better if you compare them apples to apples, but are they worth as much of a difference in price? That's a whole different story. To be noted that LG is going to be coming out with its 27GP850 in a couple of months, I believe. So there's also that. The improvements on it remain to be seen. You might want to check a review on that if you're watching this video in the future and see how well it does. The price is supposed to be at the same level of the GL850. The general specs are supposed to be about the same, with some maybe improvements in response times and overdrive modes and that sort of thing. I should note that I was absolutely ready to go for the LG model, and I did not go for it in the end because the contrast rate is even worse than your average IPS. Most IPSs have 1000-to-1 contrast rate. The LG models, because of their own proprietary technique, they have better response times and better overdrive modes. Yes, that cannot be denied. However, they have worse contrast rates even at the 750-to-1. So is that a difference that is going to be visible to the naked eye between the two? That's debatable, I suppose, but if you're going for a product that already is known, IPSs are already known to have kind of bad black levels, bad contrast rates, and then you're going for one that's even under the average for a bad thing, then if you are always going to be gaming in a well-lit room, if you're not going to be watching movies in the dark, it's probably fine. If you are going to be doing those things, then you're just rubbing salt on the wound, in my opinion, if you go for a screen that has even worse contrast rates than that. So that's kind of the end of it. I am planning to put it on a monitor arm to kind of give me more flexibility and stuff like that. I already bought it actually and have it ready to install. I just wanted to get the review out of the way first, and I'll let you guys know how it is. I'll actually review the monitor arm because why not, I guess. The links for the Amazon products that I just mentioned, all three of the monitors, are going to be down below in the description. Feel free to click them if you would like to help the channel grow. You don't pay any extra, and we get a small commission from Amazon for sending you their way, kind of. At the same time, if you find the monitors cheaper somewhere else, then do yourself a favor and get a good deal on it. I would love to have given more detailed response time and calibration and that sort of thing information for you guys, but we are kind of limited in the tools that we have to actually perform our testing. And yeah, that's one of the reasons I would love for the channel to grow, to be able to have better testing methodology and give you guys a better, a more accurate picture. So would definitely love for that to happen. And for that to happen, please click the subscribe button. That's what we need most of all to actually grow in the future. So I hope I'll see you guys in the next few videos. I hope I'll have more tech to show off. In the meantime, I have some DIY projects in the pipeline that hopefully I'll start on them soon, and I'll do my best to kind of record them and show you guys what comes out. I'll see you next video.